So these pins are used for talking to the PC or other devices. And you'll also notice that there are two TX and RX LEDs on the board. Now these LEDs, when the Arduino is transmitting or receiving, will blink. So these LEDs here, the TX and RX, they come in handy for troubleshooting. Because if they're blinking, you know the Arduino is communicating with the PC or whatever it's supposed to communicate with. If they're not, then something's probably wrong. For some reason it's not working. Now, let's talk about the analog pin headers at the bottom, A0 through A5. These connect to the analog to digital converter, or ADC, on the Atmel ATmega 328P microcontroller. So, for example, if you wanted to read the temperature of something, you could take a little temperature sensor, thermistor, plug it into the little holes you see there, and use that to translate the analog, because temperature is an analog value, it varies continuously over time, into the digital domain by using the analog in pins. Or you could use them just like the digital pins. Now, you'll see next to the analog pins we have power pin headers and ground. We have two grounds, and we have a 3.3 volt and a 5 volt pin. And if you hook a wire up to the 5 volt or the 3.3 volt socket there, and just stick it, the little end of the wire, in that little hole, and measure it with a voltmeter, you'll get either 5 volts or 3.3 volts. You'll probably use 5 volts more often than 3.3, and also the ground is essential. It's the lowest voltage on the board, usually 0 volts. You'll need a ground with pretty much everything you do if you're connecting anything to your Arduino. Next, we have the power LED, and this just lets you know when the board is on. On the lower left, we have a black DC power jack if you need to power the board from an external battery of some sort. In the upper left, we have a reset button, and this reset button could be located more towards the middle, directly above the microcontroller, in this area there, depending on the revision of the board you have. But it looks the same, so it's not hard to find. And the reset button starts over at the beginning of a program. It doesn't erase your program. It just starts over again if you run into a problem. And also, going back down to the power pins, or next to the power pins, you see there is a reset next to the 3.3 volt pin. That's another way to reset microcontroller. When there's a low there, it'll reset the board.